Hello, everyone. Welcome to Living with Intention Live. I am April Wyatt, your host for today's amazing topic, right? The heartbeat of business and where somatics, leadership, and human connection meet. Because most professionals, we've been taught to lead from the neck up. What is the next thing I need to do? I need to analyze data, read the room, make these quick decisions, right? Keep moving. And yet our body is anticipating all those moments. It holds everything for us. So we can feel it, right? Something tightens under the pressure that we're thinking, we're projecting into the future or thinking about the past, and our breath changes and our attention narrows. And this is where the somatics comes in. We need to remember that our body is here and it is communicating to us. And it's not just about, right, the business strategy. It's more about how is the nervous system responding, because guess what? People are sensing into you and what you're projecting out. And that is the heart of what we're going to be talking about. How we show up is what makes the impact in our own lives and others. And so this is where the heartbeat of business begins. So this live brings together two amazing people, Teresa and Thomas, which I'll bring up in just a moment, to share about the physical of the heart and lived experiences of the body in business. And so part of me and what I love to do as a somatic performance coach is bringing people together. And I do that in a myriad of ways. And just recently, I had the privilege of launching my recalibration experience. And this is for high capacity women that are doing a lot in their lives. Those who are managing home life, a business, or a career and have so much on their plates, but feel that they're not able to slow down enough to lean in and listen to their own body, to recognize patterns that have been there all along, because that's exactly what I recognized with myself. The patterns of having to keep going, to be on that hamster wheel and not give myself the space to slow down and really appreciate myself and my body. So this is a 7-week experience. There's still time to register, and I'll put that banner up here. So that way, if anyone's curious about that, please reach out to me because it's really about our own capacity and learning to lean in, not fixing anything, just building that awareness of how our bodies are protecting us, understanding that this is just a pattern and recalibrating our nervous system. So I do that with so many different resources and tools that I offer in this 7-week. And the reason why it's 7 weeks, well, it takes time to build that, to make new neural pathways in the brain, to ease the nervous system. So that way we can trust in our own selves and decisions. And part of easing too, if you're willing to go a little deeper with me, is the Bali experience that I have here. And this Bali experience is a all-inclusive 7-night experience. And it starts October 10th through the 17th, where we are going to explore an Osho meditation, which is a movement meditation. So again, our mind is constantly moving. It's constantly scanning, it's searching. And for those who have a challenging time to sit still then Osho meditation is for you, because you're actually moving. There's music, there's of course a breathing, but it's giving your mind something to do. And that's where we integrate. And again, that recalibration of the nervous system, also through the biodynamic breath work. We also offer a spa service for you to really integrate the energies. And also, it's about culture. So, learning more about Balinese culture, we go to a temple that's 3000 BCE, receive a water purification from a local priest there, and go to the temple for a ceremony. Also, as you can see in this picture down below, there's a waterfall that we hike to. These are actually pictures that have been taken at the last retreat that I held there. So if you're curious about going a little deeper, if learning things online or watching YouTube videos or self-help books or just weekend seminars or just kind of skimming the surface, if you're willing to go a little deeper, to pause so you can rise above the noise, I encourage you to reach out to me and discover more. And really what you're discovering is more about yourself in this experience. So that is the Bali retreat. There's still time to register. And it's all about the sanctuary of support too that comes in. And speaking of sanctuary of support, that provides safety within our nervous system as well. And when you're in a community that really sees you for who you are, your values, right? And those connections that make a big difference. That also is part of the Hounds of Business that I'm part of. So this is Mike Asherbranner, the founder of the Hounds of Business. And what you see is what you get. This is Mike. He's amazing. He's heart-centered, and he really values the connections. And that's where trust happens. When you're in the right room and you make those meaningful connections, then that's where the warm leads happen and where expansion begins. And also, I want to share a little bit about another amazing source here is I Am Magazine. And I Am Magazine is an amazing company built by two women who are sisters. So it's Jennifer Thomas and Yarita Gonzalez. And they help people, they build this platform on 3 international digital publications. Isn't that amazing, right? There's English and Spanish. They have a men's division, as you can see, Curtis Rivers there on the cover, who is an amazing soul that I know from the Hounds of Business. And together, these publications are distributed free for readers in more than 120 countries, right? It's creating that global stage where there's inspiring stories and very, very cool insights of these people and their stories, right? And they're transformative ideas that reach audiences worldwide. So if you're curious about I Am Magazine, scan that QR code or reach out to Jennifer Thompson or myself, and I can give you more information about that, because sometimes the story behind the work is what people remember most, right? Our stories. And I am very excited to bring forward 2 incredible guests here with Thomas. I'll bring him up. And Teresa Palmer. Welcome in, Thomas and Teresa. I'm so happy to have you here today to talk about this important topic of the heartbeat of business. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Delighted to be here.
I'm so grateful to have you. Yes. And when I met you both, it was like, wow, these two people need to meet because that's what I love to do. I love connecting people and just wanting others to hear about your story, speaking of stories, and how you recognized, that shifted for you, that heartbeat of business. And so, for those who aren't familiar with you, could you please introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about what that heartbeat of business means to you? How about we go with you first, Teresa? Ladies first,
Uh,
right?
okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation to be here, and thank you to everyone who's listening. I am Teresa Palmer. I'm a holistic cardiology nurse practitioner or advanced practice nurse, as it's also known. And by being a holistic cardiology nurse practitioner, it doesn't mean I don't do traditional cardiology because I do, but I add that more holistic, whole person approach. So I use a mind, body, spirit approach to cardiology. So not only do I do the traditional, what people are familiar with when you go to a cardiologist, whether it be diagnostic testing, medication, consultations, surgical consultations, anything traditional, Western. But what I also do is I reconnect individuals to their hearts because a lot of times we're trained to see the heart as a pump, and the
Mhm.
heart is also automatic. You don't have to tell your heart to beat, it just beats. And the only time we pay attention to our heart is when something goes wrong with that heartbeat or chest pain or inability or difficulty breathing. So, what I do is I make people aware that your heart is really your superpower, that your heart can help you manage stress. Your heart has wisdom. And that's the other holistic piece is that you've got this inner knowing. You've got your intuition, and you've also got a connection to something higher than yourself. And it does not matter what you call that. That is not important. It's just that connection. So I have found in over 30 years of practice, I'm sounding old now, that when you address the entire person and educate people and give them tools to use their heart and to partner with their heart rather than many times, especially people that have a heart problem, will fear their heart. They don't
Mm.
want to know it because they associate it with something bad. And yes, anything could happen to anybody, but there's so much good. Our heart is really our superpower. So that's what I do. I've also authored a book called Heal Your Heart from Within, which talks about a lot of those things. It was actually a guide for my patients. I wrote it during COVID because I thought people really need it, not only to get out of the uncertainty and fear, but they also needed tools for self management and self care. And I'm in the process of writing a book right now that's called it's going to be called um, From Fixed to Flourishing. It's about
Mm.
inviting your heart into a personal development transformation, and it's geared for women. So that's me.
Wow, that's a lot. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And I
I like
really
to
want to
talk.
go. Yeah, I want to go back to the heart and being the pump, and yeah. But first, I want Thomas to introduce himself and how he got into the heartbeat of business too.
Mm.
Thomas.
Well, thank you, April. And yes, always delightful to hear your story, Teresa. I admire you and your work greatly. So I will start with my story first and then we'll work towards that. So, the through line in my career over 25 plus years has been getting people comfortable with change, leading change, and flourishing. But it was a near fatal bicycle accident 12 years ago that made me realize that I can't live in my head. I can't lead from my head, and I need to especially with a traumatic brain injury,
Mhm.
my brain wasn't working. I didn't know if I could trust my brain again. And then, oh, well, there's this wisdom in the heart, in the body, and what is it telling me? And so, coming from a medical and scientific family that prizes intellectual prowess, having that forced quieting of the brain really forced me to say, oh, there's so much more here. And as part of my healing journey, just being able to recognize how much is held in the body, not just capital T trauma from a horrific bike accident, but even small T trauma, whether that's being bullied or not feeling fully seen as a child by a caretaker, whatever it happens to be. It's like, oh, that too is in the body. That too is shaping how I show up under pressure. And I realized that my first coaching training, when I got to a place where I could trust my brain again, I realized only in going through my second coaching training that my first coaching training, I had to prove to myself I could coach from the head, just to prove that my brain was still there, still functioning close to the level it used to be pre-accident. And with the second coaching training, which is in somatics, which is what I was called towards over several years, it's like, oh, like here's a way that I can invite people to get out of their heads into their feeling self and start to recognize the 2/3 of the data points, right? The heart and the gut, because the gut is scanning our environment for safety, belonging, and dignity all the time. And it's sort of like, is this a safe place? Can I relax? Can I open? That's not coming from the brain. That's coming from the gut. And so that neuroception is really important, and just being able to allow people the space to drop out of that story and to be able to really step forward and extend towards who and what matter most to them is the core of my work.
Mm. Oh, wow. This is going to be a great conversation. I already know it, as Teresa touched in about the heart, and people see it as a pump. And until something is dysregulated or there's some challenges there, we really don't pay attention to our hearts. We know it's beating. And when it starts the irregulation, because of the nervous system, as you talked about, Thomas, things happening there, then it gets a little off kilter. It's like a little warning signal, right?
Mhm.
Like the smoke alarm goes off a little bit. And then, as you said, Teresa, they think, oh no, something's wrong. And then that kind of is a double-edged sword, as then those thoughts of, oh my gosh, the first thought as you get older, I'm dying, or am I having a heart attack, right? So how do you speak to people before we get into the business side? First, we want to start with the heart and go out from here. What do you want people to know when they are experiencing complications, or maybe even leaning in and listening a little bit more to help prevent that? Teresa, do you mind going first?
I don't mind at all. Yeah, it's as when you're dealing with people with their heart, like we said, people don't think about their heart. They don't have to. It just automatically beats, it pumps blood. It's really our life force, because without a beating heart, there is no life. But what people don't understand, and what I help them understand, is that not only is the heart this physical living force, but it also helps you regulate, control, and even reduce and manage your stress. Because stress is what causes 99.9% of health problems. There's the acute, which is you can't do something about it. You may get pneumonia, a brick may fall on your head, a bicycle accident, anything like that can't be prevented. But we could prevent so many things from happening if we could manage stress, because stress plays havoc with the body over a period of time. And I'm talking years, sometimes even 15, 20 years, we develop a physical illness. And once we could understand that, and understand that there's always something we can do to help ourselves. That's the main message I give any of my clients, whether they're dealing with heart disease or dealing with a perfectly physically healthy life. There's always something you could do to help yourself. And when you're in control and feeling in control, you're empowered. And that
Mm,
empowerment comes from our heart, it doesn't come from our brain.
Hmm.
Our brain, as marvelous as it is still like a computer. In fact, our heart is our first brain that develops about 5, 6 weeks after conception.
mhm,
So that's the first heart. So technically, it's the primary heart, but we've been taught to be in our head, and we've been taught that you don't be emotional. That, emotional means hysterical. Emotional means out of control. That's not true. Emotional means just the opposite. A person with emotions is in control. So the first thing that I do with patients is I get them to understand that even though they may be dealing with a heart issue, there's always something they can do to help themselves. And those things are breath work. Those things are taking in and processing emotions. And that has to happen in the heart. Your brain can't process an emotion, your heart does. And your heart then sends the signal to the brain via the vagus nerve. And that's what turns off the stress hormones. And I empower people because now, and even meditation, I forgot to say that, or spending time with yourself, listening to what your heart is telling you. Your heart tells you a lot, but we don't listen. And when we're in our head a lot, we have to get physical symptoms, whether it be body aches, whether it be chest pain, regardless of anything, because the heart then has to get our attention. So why wait for your heart to get your attention when you could reconnect, I should say, to your heart on a daily basis, simply by placing your hand over your heart, closing your eyes, and breathing in and breathing out. And the exhale is so important because that's what calms the nervous system down. When you inhale, you increase your heart rate because the diaphragm, you get pressure on the diaphragm puts more blood going to the heart, and the heart rate has to increase in order to accommodate that. So when you exhale, your body gets the chance to relax. And
mm,
we're so empowered when we look at our heart from the perspective of our heart could do so much for us. Sure, things could go wrong. That's inevitable in life. Anything could go wrong any place, but you're still empowered and you're still in control. And it's really you that can create your life, how you want to live with how you want to live. And good health just doesn't mean good physical health. It means emotional, spiritual. And you could have a problem, a physical problem, and still be healthy. So people need to understand that also. And that's the hard parts because society
mm.
conditions us to be logical, think, be in our head, not be
Yes.
emotional. And we do need to be emotional.
Hmm. Yes, because if we hold in that, that's when our body, right, keeps those
Uh,
tensions, keeps those pressures, and it's asking you to, acknowledge and be able to ease that. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But I saw Thomas nodding a lot there. There's a
Yes.
lot of amazing information Teresa shared there. And I hope people re-listen to this and reach out to both of you too. And please, any questions you have while you're listening, please make a comment because I see them. They come up here on StreamYard and I'm able to, as you've seen, put it on the screen. So any questions you have or anything that you can relate to as Mike and Christy and Nathan had, chimed in on, really appreciate that. So Thomas,
Yes.
where would you like to start, my friend? There's a lot there.
There's a lot there. Well, what was really resonant for me was what I hear from a somatic perspective, what Teresa was sharing was just our habits of, like, we are what we practice. And if we practice something that has been a typical safety pattern, a wise adaptation to respond to big energy coming to us that we picked up when we were 2, 3, 4 years old, we contain that energy rather than feeling it fully. And what I heard in Teresa's share was we need to feel fully, right? That emotions, we need to feel fully. So a lot of the work that I do with my clients is having choice under pressure. And what that can
Say that
sound,
again. Say that
having
again.
choice under pressure of how you respond and not react, right? We have these well-practiced ways of, oh, when somebody says this, I'm going to push against it, or I'm going to snap, or because, and then what are you doing in your body? Maybe you're contracting your rib cage, holding your breath, you're tensing for the fight. And it's like, okay, so what would happen in that same situation if you were able to feel that perhaps it's disrespect, perhaps it's frustration, perhaps it's disgust or anxiety, whatever the emotion happens to be, but to feel it fully and just let that emotion run and let it run out your feet into the floor and just sort of say, oh, okay, so here this is in this moment. How can I also extend towards what matters most to me, honor the dignity of the other person or people, and extend towards my desired result? And so that might be saying, I feel really contracted right now. And this is painful for me, but this is what I believe would be the best way forward. And so that way, you're at least opening the door, you're honoring the other person in the process. We need to feel our own dignity to feel and honor somebody else's. And so connecting to the heart also allows us to recognize, oh, where am I making this decision from? What's the story that I'm telling in my reaction or in my response? Is it, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, like whatever that back story happens to be that forces you to show up a certain way under pressure. It's like, can you let that go and say, here I am extending towards what matters most, and just being able to say, oh, here I am. This is what I feel is most important, and here's why. And I would love to hear your side of the story.
And that's where the conversation then expands, right? It's more interactive instead of defensive or deflective, because, like you said, Thomas, having that choice under pressure of, I'm feeling activated right now. I'm feeling this either emotion or sensation, and making that choice of how to approach that with ourselves first, because nobody can make you feel a certain way. And that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. But it really does come back to us. It is our own emotions, our own sensations. And also, I want people to hear that, just as Thomas and Teresa are saying and sharing about the somatics, about witnessing what's happening with your body, making that conscious choice of the awareness, then that kind of deflates that fire, or whatever, it just building, right? Because now you have traction, you have something to focus on, objectifying it, from yourself, saying, oh, I'm feeling this here. This is what I'm going through. And in that space, then we can really ease that tension in our body. We don't have to carry it. You don't take it home with you and chew on it for the weekend and then have the that gut feeling of, oh god, I got to go in and I got to face that person now, and it just builds and builds and builds in our body, because our bodies are amazing containers. It's going to hold everything for us until we recognize that we have that choice. Yeah, that's amazing. Amazing. And Thomas, I want to unpack a little bit more, since we're talking, and we'll volley back and forth as we're doing so beautifully here, but about the leadership aspect. So
Mhm.
when working with leaders, whether it's CEOs or managers, what have you, and the perceptions, right? I think it's the perceptions of stress, the perceptions of how that the mind is trying to work it out, when it's really, as Teresa said, going into the heart, going into the body, leaning in and listening. Can you just give us a little bit more in depth of what that looks like? Like if there's a leader listening right now and they're struggling with something and they're feeling that stress and that pressure,
Mhm.
what would be an advice or first
Mm.
step you would give them?
So the first thing that comes to mind is just recognizing that we have this really strong social signal about what leadership looks like. And
Mm,
you have this almost cowboy type of mentality of somebody making these big decisions and being able to turn on a dime and like herd all the cattle and everything else. And it's just like, that's not how it works. We're actually a very collective social species. And those quick decisions are made based on lived experience, which lives in the body. And so thinking that the decisions are being made by the head, they're actually being rationalized by the neocortex, and they're being made in the heart. And it's based on lived experience largely, that like, oh, well, I've learned this and this has been my experience, so I'm going to lean this way on this decision. And it's so we have to honor that, but we also need to say, how is this really working? Does this story really serve? Because even if you've received some coaching and you might have built some awareness around habits, either in yourself or in your team, and you're still seeing these patterns of dysfunction rising up, then it's like a new approach needs to happen. And that's the type of place where I would step in to be able to say, oh, so is this an individual that is their way, especially in smaller firms where it might be primarily founder led? That could be the issue. It's like, oh, they're not delegating, right? And sometimes I have seen issues around delegation. It's like, okay, it's one thing to say, oh, well, you need to learn how to hand stuff off. But underneath that, it's like, well, if I hand this off, then who am I?
mm,
And it's also like, if I hand this off, am I really capable? Right. So it's like there's this doubt, this self-doubt. And so it's really recognizing and moving through that and saying, oh, so what is it about my leadership? Right. If I'm trying to lean in and lead from my head, like, what does that do in your body? What are you noticing? And so that's what I would invite listeners, watchers to towards just saying, okay, like Teresa was saying, listen to the heart, but it's also, can you take 30 seconds a few times a day and just start saying, okay, I have to make this decision now, or I'm about to go have this difficult conversation. What does that feel like in my body when I'm anticipating making that decision or having that difficult conversation? What's happening in my body? Like, what muscles are tense? Can I feel my legs? Can I feel my feet? Right? My coach always reminds me, if you can't have sensation, if you don't have sensation in your legs or your feet, and that's just sensory awareness,
Mhm.
how can you take a stand for something that matters for you?
I
Right?
love that.
And it's so true, because so many of us get stuck around the hips, and that can be really really challenging. So sense into your whole body, notice what you're doing and how that is either supporting or hindering you handling under pressure.
Mm. I really, really appreciate you sharing that, Thomas. And I think also people need to understand that there is nothing wrong with you too. People need to hear
Mm.
that it's just how our bodies have learned to protect us.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely.
And we're on that automatic, right? We have so much taking in, in our environment, at work, at home, and there's that autopilot that's going all the time. And we can see that when all of a sudden we have a conversation and maybe we lash out or we shut down and we wonder, why didn't I say something? Why didn't I speak up? Or why did I explode on that person? They didn't deserve that. It's just because of how the pressure that we're holding and not recognizing that we do have that choice on how to approach it and learn to lean in and listen with ease and grace for ourselves. Yeah, Teresa, I know you have some wonderful wisdom to share about this topic as we're talking about the heartbeat of business and leadership. What have you noticed working with your clients or patients?
Well, I think number one, we've kind of shut ourselves off from emotion. When I work with women that I call high performance, say they're in a high position in leadership, they're an entrepreneur. Uh, some of them have been out in the public eye, and they have a tendency to shut themselves off. You want to look like you are the one. And by that, I mean, it's kind of like that old paradigm. I remember when I was 23, that was a long time ago, I got my first management position, and I was told to model myself after men. So I had to
Mhm.
model myself after the CEO of the hospital, of the one of the other assistant directors, of my director, and that meant that I couldn't be emotional. Well, I'm always emotional and I carry my heart kind of on my sleeve, so to speak. It shows in my face. So needless to say, I had trouble with management because I was being open, I was being friendly with people, and that's not what was wanted. And I think especially women have carried that with some of the leadership in organizations that in order to succeed as a woman, you can't be emotional. You can't show an emotion. You can't, there was a time when they said we can't have a woman president because, oh my goodness, we don't want anybody that's emotional. A woman will be emotional. They won't be able to run the country, which is not true at all. So, with high performing women, they have to get into their heart. And that's difficult for them because they're so used to being in this head and they're so used to being logical. And, a lot of times, even in the healthcare profession, we do everything that's science based. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you also have to balance that with a lot of the emotional side and understand that you can't always be in your head, that you have to be in your heart and your head. And
Mhm.
once you get it on the same page, and that happens by deep breathing, that happens by spending time with yourself. Some people call it meditation. Some of my clients don't like to use that word. Sometimes meditation scares people. You have to sit cross-legged. You don't have to. Could be in any position you want. So the important thing is to know that emotions are important. And when we feel in control, and when we have that self awareness, which is part of
Mhm.
our self empowerment, we could control those emotions. When you're a leader, you can't lash out. You may want to say, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe you did that," or, in a hospital or in an office, if there's an emergency with somebody, you have to keep a clear head. So, yes, you have to learn how to control your emotions, and you learn how to control your emotions through your connection to your heart, through your
Mm.
self awareness, which then gives you the self confidence to make these
Yes.
decisions. Also, we have to understand that we emit energy. If you look at us from the crudest, the most simplest level, human beings, animals, everything are energy. How does a dog know or an animal know if you're afraid from them? It's
Mhm.
the energy that you're giving off, that fear. That's how they know it. So people feel our emotions. Our heart is the largest energy field in the body. It extends 3 feet outside of us. So people, in a sense, know what you're feeling and almost what
Mhm.
you're thinking. Not that they're reading your mind, but actually they're reading your heart because you're giving off a certain energy. So if you're not confident as a leader, you're giving off that energy that you're uncertain, that you're unbalanced, and people will pick up on that. And they could also use it against you if they wanted to. If you're overconfident and you come off as very staunch and aloof from people, people don't feel that they could come to you with problems. They don't feel
Mm.
that they could talk to you. And as a result, they're not being their best because
Mm.
you're pushing them away, but you don't know that because you're thinking that, okay, I'm doing what a leader should be doing.
Ah, yes.
I'm, yeah, I'm leading. I can't be too friendly or I can't get to know people because there's supposed to be, what would you call it? Not a barrier. I can't think of the right name, but there's supposed to be that separation between who's the boss and who's either the worker or underneath. I don't even know the right term, but that's not really true because people know you're the boss by the way you act and
Mm.
by your ability to make decisions. And we have to come across as human. And I think that's been missing. And now with AI, it's missing even more. That
Yeah.
a lot of times we turn to something more automated rather than turning to people. So I would say to
Yeah.
any leader, balance your heart with your head. Sure, you have to be logical, but know that you also have to be emotional, but control your emotions and be aware of your energy, what kind of mood you're in,
Mhm.
because people are going to pick that up.
For sure. Oh, yes. And going to AI, it's a tool, but really leaning in and trusting in ourselves. And that's listening to your heart. How is your heart responding? And I know that Thomas has some amazing wisdom to share here too, as you ended with that, Teresa. Thank you so much. I just love this conversation. Please put any questions or comments in the chat there, as we would love to answer anything for you. So, Thomas, yeah, to go off of that bridge of what Teresa was talking about, yeah, of the heart and energy, how that impacts other people in the
Mm.
team, in our personal and private life, because wherever we go, there we are.
Absolutely. And this goes back to what are we practicing? And my work is really helping people practice with intention so that they are in alignment with their vision and values. And how does if you we typically have 4 different ways that we respond to big energy. We either push against it, that's the fight. We turn towards it, that's appeasing or fawning. We turn away, that's fleeing or flight. And we freeze. And the fifth one, which is less common, is dissociation. It's like, okay, it's not safe in this vessel, I'm leaving. But if like I came onto this show and I was like, it would be a very different conversation that we would be having, right? But it's like, I'm not pushing anybody away, really. It's like, but it's all of that tension is projecting. You can feel it even across Zoom or, across a screen, because it bypasses time and space, and so that energy is felt. And so if I'm soft and open, then people are going to be willing to engage, even if it's a difficult conversation, versus shutting something down and feeling like, oh, I'm just going to be run roughshod over. So why do I even bother? And that's going to really affect. And so with AI, sure, we can get AI to do many things and act as, agentic, doing various tasks for us, but that still minimizes the importance of having that human connection and being able to feel your own dignity, because you can't really feel your own dignity with AI. And you need to be able to feel that, in my opinion, in order to feel and recognize and honor somebody else's. And that's, I feel like, what Teresa was also pointing to, is we need to connect to ourselves. And that if we're not connected to ourselves, it makes it even more difficult to connect with other people. And so if you don't know what's going on inside in the moment, then it's really hard to know how you're showing up and how that's impacting somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that self-trust that Teresa was also pointing to, that confidence. It comes from, oh, I have this lived history. I have this training. And this is how I can show up and extend towards what matters most to me.
Yes, self-trust is essential, because that also radiates that energy out. People want to be able to trust in others. So first we need to, this is the first thing, you walk into the room, people are already sensing that neuroception, as you brought out, Thomas, from Dr. Porges, right? And it's radiating around us. Science shows that. And when we walk into a room, you don't need to even say anything. People can already sense something. I mean, just think about, either business or private life. You walk into the room, the other person's there. It's like, oh, something's off. We can sense it. That's natural. That's innate in our nervous system, in our heart, as we're radiating the energy there. And I also want to bring it back to the heart, since we're talking about the heartbeat of business. Yes, the heart is the first organ, the first thing that's developed in our being. And the nervous system comes from that, branches out, and then everything else, develops around it. So our heart is essential, and it's such a precious, precious resource. And people need to understand that it's you. And it's not fuzzy, touchy-feely. This is you, your body. You wouldn't be here without your body. So why not? Why not just kind of lean in and, what do I need for myself today? How is my heart speaking to me? Maybe there is a little bit of sadness or grief, as Thomas was talking about, honoring those spaces of ourselves, giving ourselves room to actually be and feel into it. Although that can be scary, as Teresa said, as we're taught to be in our minds and analyze things and prevent try and prevent things, and we can't. We just need to be here in the moment because that's the only space we can control right now and here. And when we take that breath, ease into that parasympathetic nervous system, this is where we receive more of ourselves. And that starts from the heart. Yeah, so we're getting close to closing. I just want to bring it back to, for you both, you've done so much work with others, and as you've discovered with your own profession of how incredible, impactful our hearts are, what words of advice do you have for anyone listening right now of maybe a first step that they can do to lean in and listen? And Teresa, how about we go with you first?
Sure. I think the first step is to spend time with yourself, even if that's just a minute a day. And by spending time with yourself, what I mean is close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, feel that miracle of your heart beating.
Mhm.
Breathe in, breathe out. No distractions. Just focus on your heart beating, focus on your breath, and listen into that silence, because our heart isn't going to have a conversation like the commercial does. I love that commercial because the deeper meaning is not that you need a cholesterol medication. The deeper meaning is that your heart speaks to you. That's really the deeper meaning of that commercial. I just love it. But your heart's not going to sit down next to you and say, "Hey, Teresa, we're feeling this way today, or we're doing this." Your heart is going to give you subtle things. So it may be that maybe a thought comes into your mind, "Oh, I would like to do this." Or maybe you're being pulled or nudged in a little different direction. All of a sudden, you're noticing maybe things and different interests. Like maybe now you're becoming interested in woodworking where you were never interested in it before. These are all little things that your heart is giving you these messages. And when you sit and you spend time with yourself, you could put those messages together and follow the crumbs. Where are things leading? Also, acknowledge your emotions. What am I feeling? That's the first question. And that's the most important question every day. Ask it as often as you need to. What am I feeling right now? And if you're really brave, ask yourself, am I afraid to feel it? What am I feeling right now? It's okay to be angry. It's okay to grieve. We don't have to feel
Mm,
well all the time, but yet we're kind of taught that we do. It's not that you go out on the street and somebody says, "How are you?" And you
yes.
say, "Oh, the day that you don't even know them." That's not it. But what am I feeling right now? Why am I afraid to feel it? Or am I afraid to feel it? And you may not come up with an answer right away. You may be feeling angry. You may not be able to pinpoint exactly what happened. But what you're doing is you're giving yourself time not to go into fight or flight. Because if you don't acknowledge
Mhm.
that emotion, go straight to the brain, the amygdala, it turns on fight or flight. All these all these chemicals start being secreted, the fight or flight hormones. We become stressed. So the heart is actually giving you time to sit back and take your time and process, because the heart connects directly to the vagus nerve. It runs along the back of the heart. So the heart gives the message to connects to the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve connects to the brain and says, "Whoa, we don't need the stress hormones. Everything's okay. Teresa's fine. Teresa's not in danger." Because all the brain could decipher is, are you safe or are you in danger? And it can't
Exactly.
decipher real danger. It thinks everything once that signal comes in. So everything does start in the heart. If you think about it, everything starts in the heart. But First step, sit quietly with yourself, hand on heart, breathe, and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And ask yourself that as many times during the day to acknowledge what you're feeling. That's important. And I'll end with that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, very valuable. It's so important, really, because this is you, people. I'm just being honest here. How do you want to feel? And the more that we ask ourselves that, how, when I get out of bed, or even I first wake up in the morning, when I first start coming out of sleep, I ask myself, how do I want to feel today? How do I want to feel at the end of the day? I want to feel lighter. I want to feel, wow, this is going to be an amazing conversation with Thomas and Teresa. Seriously, I kept saying over and over again, this is going to be so enlightening. People are going to be so excited, and we're just planting seeds here. Bringing in the heart medicine is so important. So asking ourselves these questions, nobody can make us feel a certain way, not projecting how things are going to go bad or whatever it is. You make the choice, as Thomas said in the very beginning. So, speaking of Thomas, what words of advice do you have for our viewers and listeners right now?
Mm. So, very similar to what Teresa was saying, is really taking the time to soften and to listen to what your body is saying, because in order to collaborate, in order to coordinate with others, we need to be soft and open to possibility. We need to be present, and we need to be on purpose. And so, one of the things that I do with my clients is offer them a centering exercise. And this doesn't have to take long, but to really just settle in and feel their full length. So can they let the legs get heavy, extend into the earth, and just feel that extension into the earth, and notice what the quality of contact you have with the floor, even if you're seated, and then allowing a gentle lift into your upper body, into your torso, and just feeling that length. This is your line of dignity, and you need to feel this so that you can recognize and honor the dignity of others. And then your width, which is starting with your outer edges physically. So your ears, shoulders, hips, knees, right? And your ankles, your feet, and just notice what it's like to fully fill out that. So can you, because so often we make ourselves narrow. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm stupid. And so we're not fully expanding into our width. And then, as Teresa has so beautifully stated, like, we have an energy field. Can you extend beyond your physical body into that energetic space? And that can be 3 feet, so roughly the radius of your arm, and 360 degrees horizontally and vertically. And then can you rest with confidence in feeling the strength of your lived history, of feeling your ancestors, your teachers, your mentors at your back, really feeling into who has your back. And that is just having that space to be able to say, okay, so now all of this can be integrated into your geographic center, which is lower abdomen. It's it's not a point in the front, it's a ball. So it's literally in the bottom of the pelvic bowl, and extend from there. And just what becomes possible when you extend from there, and what is it like, what becomes, possible when you do that on a regular basis.
Oh, and that is serious expansion. When a person recognizes it's not just here in the head space, right?
Mhm.
When you involve the whole body, I love the line of dignity, Thomas.
Yeah.
That was gold. So really utilizing your whole body, just not up here, because that's the push, push, push. we can ease into the rest of the body, incorporate all this space that's here for us. This is our container of support. And I love how you walked us through that. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Mhm.
And we have Tom Cullen here, who is really enjoying this, along with the Hounds of Business and Mike Asherbranner and some other people who've come in and chimed in. Christy and Jennifer, thank you for being here, everyone. Also, I want to just say thank you for those who are listening now, watching, and in the future. And I hope that you found this conversation helpful and useful. And please reach out to Teresa and Thomas. Connect with them. They're here for you to support you. So, Thomas, since I have you in the corner of the screen, where can people connect with you?
So the easiest is going to my website, regenerate.coach. And if you go to the Let's Chat, then you can get on my calendar, and I'm happy to have a 30 to 45-minute conversation with you.
And I highly encourage it. He's a very generous, open-hearted person, as you can see and hear today, and feel. You can feel his authenticity. It's amazing. Not many men hold that presence, so I really do appreciate you, Thomas, and everything
Thank
that you
you.
do. And Teresa, how about you? How can people? I have your LinkedIn here, but where else can people connect with you?
People could connect to me on my website, and that's Teresa Palmer Hart, all one word.com.
Okay.
And you could leave me a message and I'll definitely get right back to you. So thank you.
Wonderful. And we so appreciate everyone. We're past the hour. It's such a good conversation. I didn't want to stop any of this because this is what we're here to do. This is my intention, is putting my attention on my intention to help people bring more awareness of what well-being is. Yes, you can exercise, you can have a healthy diet, you can do all those kind of generic things, but it's really expanding our view of what wellness is. And it all does emanate from the heart and how we connect to ourselves first and foremost, as Teresa kept bringing us back to that. Stop, pause, put your hand on your heart, take that breath, be here, however that looks, or be out in nature. If it's challenging for you to be with your body because of past traumas and things, you keep disassociating, go out in nature, pet your dog, go for a walk on the beach or wherever. Just bring that ease back to your body. It's just those drops in the bucket. And I appreciate Thomas and how you brought the presence in of the full body. Definitely rewatch this if you missed that about 10 minutes ago. That was gold too. So thank you, my friends. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for the work that you do. It is so imperative to bring people back to themselves and remember that they are the ripple effect. So
Thank you so much.
Thank
thank
you.
you.
It's been a
And
pleasure.
it most definitely. And who knows, maybe talk two. I mean, we had a lot of conversation. I think we just skimmed the surface for sure. So enjoy the day. And until next time, be well.